Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight.
Welcome to Crazy Carrot Studios. My name is James, and today we will be going over prefabs and how to instantiate and destroy them. Unity's prefab system allows you to create, configure, and store a game object complete with its components, property values, and child game objects as a reusable asset. The prefab asset acts as a template from which you can create a new prefab instance, or clone of the original. You should also use prefabs when you want to instantiate game objects at runtime that did not exist in your scene at the start. For example, when you want to make power-ups, special effects, projectiles, or for when you want NPCs to appear at the right moment during gameplay. Let's jump back in our scene and create a prefabs folder that we can store all our prefabs in. We will just title this prefabs. Now back in our hierarchy, let's go ahead and create an empty game object. Let's retitle this game object to Game Manager. And from there, we're going to move our script that we had moves and set it into the Game Manager instead of on Bob. Now from here, we want to take Bob and let's create a prefab. First, we want to remove the script that was already on Bob. Next, we're going to move Bob down into the prefabs folder. Congratulations, you've just created a prefab. Now we're going to talk about creating a prefab variant. This allows us to create off the original prefab variations of the same. So in this particular case, we're going to take some different colors, throw them on Bob, and bring that back into our prefabs folder, but this time we're going to select prefab variant. Now we have two of the same game objects with two different colors. So let's try another one here as well. And we're going to do the blue one and bring this one back down as well. So now we have two variants along with the original prefab. Now at this point we want to delete Bob from our game scene. Now let's get into what instantiating really means. Instantiating means bringing the game object into existence. Objects appear to spawn or generate in game. In other words, instantiate is a fancy word for creating a clone of the prefab. Let's start in our script by creating two new variables for our prefab. One we're going to call my prefab Bob, and we're going to make this one public. The second one we're going to label private and say my created prefab Bob. I've added a couple of comments here so you know exactly what they are. Now on the bottom we're going to create two new functions. One is for the instantiating the prefab, which we're going to call private void create game object, because that's essentially what we are doing, is creating it. And the following code, my created prefab is equal to instantiate my prefab Bob. In other words, a private variable after prefab is created is equal to create a public variable that we have assigned in the inspector. Let's go ahead and do that now. Go to your game manager, and in our script we want to assign Bob the prefab into the my prefabs Bob. Create our destroy function much the same way. Now normally you could say destroy this if you're on that game object, but because we are on a different game object trying to reference Bob, in other words our game manager is where the script is being held, we need to change this game object to my prefab Bob. In start we need to reference the function create game object. Notice there is no Bob in the scene, but when we hit play it will create a created copy or clone of Bob. Here, let's look at that again. If you look in the hierarchy, you see a Bob clone there. From here, we're going to go ahead and reference our destroy function in the start as well, so we can see how that works. So go up to your start. Let's comment out the create game object. We can actually comment out the cube renderer if you haven't as well. And we just want destroy game object function. Now that's going to call our destroy game object. So what we need to do is make sure we have a game object to destroy. So let's put Bob back into our scene. Go to our game manager, make sure it's referencing that particular Bob. And then when we hit play, you will notice that our cube will disappear. is how we create prefabs, and through functions how we instantiate and destroy that same prefab. In our next episode, we will go over UI and explain how we can use buttons to interact with our scripts to fire off those functions. And from all of us at Crazy Carrot Studios, we would like to say thank you. And don't forget to please like and subscribe. We will see you next time when we get back to Learning with Bob.